Meet ISTQB Prep. Designed for future ISTQB certified testers, ISTQB Prep gives you everything you need to prepare effectively, from realistic exam simulations to AI-driven insights. Practice like it's the real exam. Get timed ISTQB-aligned tests featuring official sample questions so you know exactly what to expect. No more second-guessing. Receive instant feedback with clear explanations, helping you understand why an answer is right or wrong. Stay on track with detailed performance analytics. Pinpoint your strengths, identify areas to improve, and watch your confidence grow. Get access today through GASQ or ISQI, whether as a standalone prep tool or bundled with your ISTQB exam. Study smarter, boost your confidence, pass your exam. Start preparing with ISTQB Prep today.
Welcome to the A4Q Testing Summit 2026. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you. For me, it's just 8 in the morning here, which means I have my coffee here now. Some of you are right middle in the workday, and for some of you, it's nearly the end of the day, or maybe you're just relaxing after a long workday. Wherever you are on this planet right now, thank you for being here. My name is Richie Seidel, and it's an honor for me to open this testing summit today and to host with my wonderful colleagues some sessions for today and tomorrow. We have 2 days full packed of very interesting topics, 75 speakers delivering 75 sessions from over nearly 30 countries over the 5 continents in 3 languages, English, German, and French. We have people from Belgium to Brazil, from Mauritius to Malta, from Tunisia to Turkey, from Rwanda to Japan. So the whole international testing community is now here, and you can learn from them and get some inspiration. And all we have together one shared idea: quality matters, and the people behind matters even more. These days, you will meet colleagues with different ideas, from different industries, with different stories, with different topics, but we have all the same attitude. Quality is a mindset. And so it's my invitation for you for the 2 days. Listen, but also speak, share your knowledge, use the chat, use social media to share what you learn here in this conference, and connect with the speakers and the community, because we tester and QA people, we are such a crazy cool community, and I think we should celebrate. Thank you for being here. Enjoy the sessions, take care of each other, and learn for your daily work here. And not to talk too much, I want to move on to the first speaker, and we are welcoming here Usha Kandala today. She has over 2 decades of experience in software quality engineering. She's founder of and CEO of Firebucks, dealing with quality engineering there too, and coaching. And she will talk about move fast without breaking trust, balancing Lean QA and compliance in the AI era. Before we start the presentation, don't forget one thing. You can vote for the best speaker and the best presentation via the website. And also, please use the chat and ask questions, and we will deal with them at the end of the presentation. Thank you so much. And Usha, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Richie. Thank you for the introduction. Hey, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for joining us today and joining my session today about how do we move fast without breaking trust. So let's jump in. Quick intro about myself. As Richie introduced, I'm Usha Kandala. I'm the CEO and founder of Firebucks. I've been in quality engineering for a little over 2 decades now, and focusing on digital transformation and startup acceleration. I'm also an international speaker and advocate for ethical AI. Last year, I won the Eurostar's Best Award, Paper Award for Ethical and AI and Bias Testing. I hold a master's degree from Harvard in Management and Operations, and I'm also a part of Goldman Sachs Women Entrepreneurship Program. So I don't know if you folks recall about this meme that came out a couple of decades ago. This is a dog sitting in fire, but saying this is fine. How many of us have experienced this on a Friday, 11 p.m., when you have a production release going out, when as a QA, you think it's not okay, but there's a hard deadline. You're sitting there, sipping your coffee, sitting in the fire and making it through. So I wanted to ask, you have a vibe-coded development happening. You have a founder who comes in and says there's backlog, there's a 3-week sprint, but you're only one QA engineer, and you have to ship this. So most of us would kind of resonate with this. In the last 30 days, or let's say 2 months, how many times have you shipped, said okay, a go to a release, though you were not 100% confident about the test coverage because the deadline was real? You're kind of working backwards. So I'm sure most of you would agree. So in this discussion, I don't want to support that, tell that whether AI is going to help us move faster, that it will. We have already seen that over last 1 or 2 years. But what I'm going to discuss about is how can it help us move faster without burning down what took us years to build? Trust. We all are aware that we have been shipping products for years, and maintaining the customer trust is the highest priority. With the advent of AI and inclusion of AI tools in your pipeline for QA delivery, are we missing out on the trust? What should we do about it? Is that I'm going to focus on my talk today. So we will discuss about how QA teams can move fast without creating tomorrow's problems. So why does it matter now? We've been doing QA for a long time. Products releases are going out. If anybody here is from the days of waterfall, you would agree that how Agile has significantly changed the release cycles. Pre-Agile, sometimes the releases would go a quarter or more. With the introduction of Agile, the release cycles have become much shorter, and they've gone down to weeks. Now, how many of you have AI-assisted testing going on in your organization? We do. We work with a lot of clients where development teams are using Copilot or using vibe coding tools. That is compressing even the weeks delivery sprint cycles to hours. We are doing patch releases in days. So the feature density, reports show that the feature density per release has tripled over the last 3 years. But the QA team size, it's been mostly flat. If you recollect pre-Agile days, or even in early 2010s, 2011, 12, the ratio for dev to QA used to be 1:1. So if you have 10 devs, you would have like at least 8 to 10 QAs. Things have changed with Agile, with automation primarily, where it's significantly reduced. And with AI, it's even more getting flatter. So the math is not adding up. How do we change this equation as QA? So the new question that as QA we should be asking is not how do we test more, but how do we test what is important? In the past, we've always driven through a risk-based approach where we say, hey, I assume that these features are risky because the development has touched this part of the code. Great, that is a great approach for test strategy. But I think with the lean teams moving really fast with the releases, we need to start with the failure cost. The question that you have to ask is, what is going to break in production and what is the blast radius if a particular feature fails? So list down, take a list of your last 3 production incidents and drive your test strategy via that. And then you will realize that if your AI is generating 500, 600 cases in seconds, that is not your priority. What are the 21 that really matter is where your human intervention comes into picture. So you're not breaking trust, you're still releasing a trustworthy product in a shorter duration of time. So that should be your real strategy. Now, why does AI feel like a gift? At least to me, it does. In the last 1 year, we have significantly picked up AI within our organization, helping our clients scale very fast and build the whole QA pipeline much faster, make releases much faster, and with trust. Because AI gives you that leverage for small teams that will help you function like big teams, like larger organizations, which have the cushion of having a larger QA team. If you come to the startup spectrum, the cushion is much, much less, where you are actually making away with 30 dev team, engineering team versus like 7 QA. That's usually the ideal number, the ratio that we work with in startups. So it is changing the game, definitely changing the game. There are some initial areas that as QA, you can start using AI to see the significant improvement in the delivery pipeline, like test design. This is where we spend significant amount of time converting the requirements into test cases where humans are sitting and writing test cases, but that should not go away. Just like when automation came, writing test cases or functional testing did not go away. It is a process that we need to still stick to, but you could leverage AI tools to speed that process up. And self-healing of automation scripts. You build an automation script, there's UI changes, there is things happening where your locators are changing, your elements are changing. So you can actually use self-healing capabilities of AI tools when manual fix or maintenance efforts are significantly reduced. Data is one big part where QA needs to mimic or create test data or the golden data set for your testing purposes in the lower environments where you're getting data from production or you're getting data from your sandbox and trying to take away the PII data and build your synthetic data. So this is where we can definitely leverage AI tools to speed up our process of testing. But do not forget the compliance and governance checks. We will talk about it in the future slides, where we should be very careful about what sensitive data that we are using if we are building the synthetic data, because when you're building data, you need to give an input. You need to give it some context to build the data. And you should not ever replace the human judgment. So for anyone who's worried, is AI going to take your job away? We don't think so. We've been experimenting with a lot of tools, and we know when it hallucinates, it still needs us, at least at this point. So QA should still own the judgment. AI can suggest, but as a human, as a QA, as a decision maker, you must decide. It's not interactive, but I would like to ask the question, how many of you have heard of the word shadow QA? So people in your team are using tools. They are using AI tools. And you don't know. The leadership does not know. Maybe somebody is just using GPT to decide the test cases. Somebody is using, stuck at a program for your automation, asking Claude about it. So maybe people are using to mask the data to generate things. So this is very important aspect that needs to be curbed, that needs to be verified by QA team. If you're a QA lead or a manager, first thing you should be going and checking what is, if your team is already using shadow AI, where there is real leak happening, where people are using free AI tools to generate test data, where this is again, they're not doing it intentionally with a malicious intent. It just happens that people want to speed up because we want to catch up with the releases, and we are trying to speed up things, and basically are using tools without approval. So your data is leaving your organization. Your unreviewed scripts are going into, information is being shared in terms of your code. So it's not necessarily only a policy problem. It's more of a trust leak that needs to be verified. So before we jump into the other aspects of how do we actually curb shadow AI or how do we bring the compliance checks into place, I just wanted to quickly run over a toolkit where I'm going to categorize these into three subdivisions, where as a QA, if you have not started using AI tools, this is a good start. I've appended the compliance and governance part because this talk is all about not losing the trust. So how do you use any of the open source or commercial tools to make sure that you're using the AI in the right way? So there are three categories. Like I said, the low-hanging fruit, where you can see a lot of value add, is test generation and automation. You could use your QA engineer's time more efficiently doing risk-based testing or doing edge cases instead of writing the grunt work of doing test cases. So most of the tools out there, even Atlassian, or if you're using TestRail, it has an inbuilt test case generator. What you could use is use one of those. Lumos AI, I would like to have a special mention here. This was born out of a need and necessity that we thought when we were spending. We work with a lot of startups, so our QA team is very lean. So we thought we should not be wasting time on doing the grunt work. So we developed this in-house, saying that just take your test case requirements from your Jira, convert, add the traceability, and generate test cases. And it links to your external test case tool like Jira or TestRail or X-Ray. Similarly, Catalan also supports self-healing scripts for automation. Most of you, if you're already using AI tools, you must be familiar with Playwright MCP. It's an amazing tool. We are using it within Cloud Code and Playwright MCP for test automation. So it really accelerates your test automation. Also includes your self-healing. So you're spending less time on the day-to-day activities and focus on the real big issues. There is also a tool called Mabel, which is for visual regression. Whenever, if you notice, a lot of companies, organizations are moving away into better UI. So there's a lot of UI changes happening, so you can catch them fast. Now, coming to your next tool set, the most important one, compliance and governance. I think this is very initial. Very few organizations are doing the compliance and governance check. The one that sits in the middle is your big thing that you should focus on coming in the next rest of the year. Now, what happens? I'll give one or two examples. For example, FairLearn is an open source tool. It kind of detects the bias and fairness and kind of show any disparities in your data. I will give an example. Let's say you're testing a healthcare application which deals with patient, which is basically making any risk assessments for your patient data. In that patient data, you have data grouped by gender, male, female, and then based on ethnicity. So if your data set is biased towards a certain ethnic group or based on gender, so you're basically letting your algorithm work around that, and you're using the wrong data, where in production, maybe it is not even considering your Black women for a particular disease, and it's making incorrect assumptions and prognosis. Let's say somebody is using for a doctor scribe tool or for making assessment about, if you've heard about one of the bigger organization, UHG, it had a big issue about fairness in this case. So also another example of fairness, which I will talk in the next slides, is about financial institutions. When banks are granting credit scores or giving loans out to people, home loans or anything, they're using an algorithm model where they need to be fair. So the data that you're feeding is very important. If you're somehow leaking in that, okay, in a certain zip code, the people who live are low-income families, so your algorithm is using that zip code, not directly, but indirectly, to make an assumption to whether give the loan, give the loan to the particular person based on the credit score. So that is your compliance issue there. So all these come into play when you're actually, building your synthetic data, you're testing, you need to have bias and fairness checks in place. Similarly, there's SHAP and Lime, where it explains why a model made a certain decision. So it's a good practice to also check on explainability. SHAP is a free source, open source tool. There's also Deep Eval, which will help you with hallucination. Is your AI application or AI algorithm hallucinating? Is it giving the right results or not? And there is the third set of data AI toolkit, which you could use, is for synthetic data and drift checks. So many organizations, as we know, if they're working on regulated compliance data, they do not trickle that data down to lower environments. So it always resides in production, and whatever comes to the lower environments where QA is dealing with it, or you're doing your stage or pre-stage testing, it's all masked data. Now, Is it masked enough? Is it rightly masked? Or is there a combination of that would kind of let out the actual PII or the customer information is something that as QA we need to keep tabs on. So you could actually check, use Gradle or mostly AI. They have a premium model, so you can check if there's a free part of it where you could do the PII, the patient information, the personal information, identifiable information check. And also there are other tools that will let you check on drifts for data. That is evidently. You could try out, check what is more appropriate for you. If you're dealing with a lot of regulated data, then probably you should have checks for bias and fairness, and then safety information like PII safe information. Okay, moving on. Now, before we jump in and start using the tools, there are many, many tools out there. What I just put out there is a small subset of publicly available open source and commercial tools. Now, tomorrow you can go start picking up tools and start running all of them. But, speed is not the only goal for us. We expect more from the AI-powered systems. So we have to make sure that everything may look perfect on the top. You're running something, your tests are passing. I would like to throw an example here. We were a couple of months or like something around last year, we started using AI to generate automation scripts and for API automation to speed up things. And then we realized we were using GPT-5 and using Sonnet within our IDE. It's again a playwright framework, but what was happening was it was somehow hallucinating and making a test pass. So we actually plugged in false values in there to check, hey, is it passing a false failure? So basically it is hallucinating, it thinks it's passed, and it's just manipulating us and saying, hey, it's all green. So that is very important that as QA, we need to put in our human judgment in place and kind of have tabs on different things, different outputs that AI is giving. So again, your quality risks are always there with hallucinations, with your bias, and never ever have the gap of human fallback. Human in loop is always important. Whether you're generating test cases using an AI tool, have a verifier. It will significantly reduce your time. Maybe a human is taking, a QA person is taking 30 minutes a day or 1 hour a day to take a couple of tickets from your sprint to write test cases in detail. You could do the grunt work of preconditions and everything, but have the reviewer spend at least 5 to 10 minutes to make sure AI is not hallucinating, AI is not putting junk data in there. So that is where the trust comes in. When your user asks you, can I trust this? As a QA, you would answer back that, yeah, this is our most important test case. Not automation, not how much data we tested, not how many test cases we ran. Now, let's talk about 3 important things. We'll start with your AI hallucination. So when AI kind of hallucinates, your test suite sort of believes it. I would like to give an example where I told you about this situation in healthcare where you're having structurally everything is correct. You have medical dosages based on your criteria, say your gender criteria or your ethnicity. If your algorithm is hallucinating and your output is incorrect, then it is actually giving out a medically dangerous advice to the users. So this could be caught post-deployment if you do not have the checks in place. So you should, in this situation, or if you're in a fintech where you are doing, edge cases like I mentioned about credit scores or compliance reports, you could involve these detection tools within your QA pipeline, where you say, either using deep eval or you're using a fact score where you're saying, is your claim that your AI is making it showing all green, is it working correctly or not? It'll gives you a score for each of your cases and then lets you verify them independently. So never go with just the output of the LLM by itself. I think you should test against truth or a context. Now, what is the ground truth? You probably want to baseline your production data or your rules and say, hey, is this, for example, if it is consistently passing for a white ethnicity group, and it's always 80% lower for a black ethnicity group. Say your algorithm is giving, you have an application that is telling what is the risk of a particular disease being for across age groups. So there are a lot of applications where say, 10 years, what disease I'm going to have. So in those cases, it's very important that you run these. So it is not making assumptions, it's not hallucinating, it is not being biased. And then we also talk in the same context about bias and fairness testing, because I talked about this minority group. This is a real case where it happened, where a bank kind of had a credit model assigned low scores to applicants for certain zip codes. Now, when the digging was done, this went out. So afterwards, when people somebody looked into it, did the research, they found that this was not a direct input of race, but the zip code was for the area where you had lot of certain ethnic group living there, which are low income. So basically, it mapped certain ethnic groups to low income to the zip code. At the big picture, at high level, your model or your algorithm is basically just taking a zip code. There's no harm in there, right? It's just using a zip code to generate your scores, your credit scores. But what is happening behind the scenes is it is actually using a protected attribute of race and low income tied to the zip code, which is fetching and actually seeping in bias into your credit scoring system. Now, when this came out, it was a big thing for the bank. When you look at EU AI Act or the US AI Act, it is basically a compliance violation. As a QA, if you have a product, if you're working in a financial regulated industry, definitely you need to have tools like FairLearn. Also, there's DICE from Microsoft, really good for counterfactual fairness. So what it basically does is within my data, if I flip one particular demographic, I am saying men versus women or ethnicity of Caucasian, African American, Asian. If I just flip one demographic, is it changing my outcome or not? So if it is changing your outcome significantly, that means definitely bias is seeped into your model. So these are the checks that you should do. Please try DICE. It's a very good counterfactual fairness tool, but FairLearn is also very easy and it's an open source tool. So this is something that it could be a great starting point for your teams if you're not already doing bias testing. Data quality and drift checks. So essentially, this is the third pillar. We talked about hallucination, we talked about bias and fairness check, and then your data quality. This is very important, especially if you're working in healthcare, working in fintech, where you're using PII data and you really need to mask it down. You need to kind of basically wrap that information. It doesn't get down to your tools or to your lower environment, which probably you're already doing. But how do you detect, silent degradation in your models? So NHS, I've given some examples here, both of fintech and what happened in UK NHS. So people didn't notice until the alerts went out much later, where your prediction model was trained on an older data set. So pre-2020 and after COVID, when COVID happened in 2020, the data actually had a lot of drift, which changed their model risk scores and everything. So your training distribution data is wrong. So again, when we say data, we are saying, okay, no production data for QA, you have to build or mask your own data, but you have to train your data correctly. Otherwise, you're testing using a wrong data set. So that's why it becomes very important. You are learning from the prod data, but also not letting any of the PII information flow into your QA pipeline or into your AI tools. So again, that's why data quality checks have to be done at the pipeline entry point, not after your automation, not when you're going to the production. It has to be not even before your model run. It has to be in your entry where you're building the data. So before even your model gets to touch the data, you're actually building your data. That is where your if you're feeding it garbage, definitely it's going to come out with garbage, and you will have issues later on where you're shipping wrong, products to your clients. Regulation, big thing. I think folks who are in EU are very aware of the EU AI Act. It is coming with lot of conditions for applications or companies that are using AI for either development or part of their product. Let's say you're a claims. You're using AI to generate your healthcare claims or for your financial credit scoring. These are companies, organizations that must comply to EU AI Act. So it becomes very important for you as a QA. Is your AI QA stack ready? Are you using AI? And to what extent are you using? And what else can you use to be audit ready? There's also ISO 42001, which is actively auditing AI management system as part of the enterprise audits right now. And then there is SOC 2 HIPAA, which has always been there, where you have to check about your test data processing and how are you actually matching it with the production. So you cannot have a test data set that's completely away from your production, which you saw a previous issue where it was not finding the right risks beforehand. So your test artifacts, whatever you are doing, if your team is already using anything for testing, you should start tracing them. They should be auditable, they should be audit ready. And just saying we are using GPT or we're using Claude or any other LLM model for test cases or for automation is not an acceptable audit response. So start maintaining the audit log from whenever. So now, before we wrap up, I would just like to spend the next 5 minutes explaining the Lean QA AI Playbook. If you're at any point in your organization, in your QA organization, where you could be someone who did not start using AI tools, or you just started using AI tools for the initial QA pipeline, like test data or to writing test cases, and would like to add the trust checks and things like that, this playbook is for you. So I'm going to talk about here about how do you actually start with. So it has like 6 elements where you're saying start with the risk, not with the volume. We have to get away from the mindset of testing the volume before the release to testing risk-based. What exactly is going to break if I don't test? What is the production blast radius is the question that I have to ask. Focus on that, what matters. Your user workflows, your data, your patient data, or your authentication cycles, they all kind of should be your priority. And then you do the risk assessment and give the risk rating for other features. UI, definitely use AI to accelerate your drafts. Like I mentioned, your test ideas, you have a new feature coming up, you want to understand or make a strategy of how to build this. So that is something you could definitely use AI for test case generation, plug it into your Jira. Another thing is definitely for reviews. If you're using Jira, you must have heard of RoboDev. This basically helps you speed up your development. You could use that for QA as well. We are using it in one of our team where we use it for code reviews for your automation. So it does the initial review and then there is a human in loop. So absolutely need to have a human code reviewer for your automation code that is generated by AI tool. Human validation for your test cases generated, validate the outcomes always. Add some lightweight trust checks, like I talked about fairness and bias checks. You can kind of get them up and running in weeks. Maybe just run on your data. Don't get into the model drift part yet if you haven't started. The best way is to start off with your data checks. And then capture as you go. This is very important for your audit trail. So you keep capturing whatever the log prompts are, the decisions, your test results, your traceability. So this will kind of help you maintaining the audit log. When you go in for an ISO 42001 audit, you have everything that you're using in QA audited and traceable. Again, AI risk is high if there is data like health data for patients, or your confidence is low, you bring in the experts. But be very careful where you're using. It is not works for all one kind of a thing. You have to be careful about where you're using your AI tools and in what part of your QA pipeline. So right risk, right evidence, right level. So let's go into the new next slide, where these are your key takeaways. When you go back from this session today and tomorrow, you can start off with Lean QA. If you're a Lean QA team, start off with evaluating what AI tools are going to help your team. Basically see, where are you spending most of your time? Are you writing test cases for most part of your sprint? Then try to use any of the open source or commercially available tools to generate your test cases. Assign a reviewer, definitely. Identify a QA reviewer and tell that everything that comes out before it is marked as completed will be reviewed by this person. Assign one for the design phase, assign one for the automation phase, where the code review happens. And then you have the trust equation. So that is where you basically do your checks. Make sure that you don't have unvetted AI into your test pipeline. So do your bias data, test data check. For any leaked, personally identifiable information, your PII is very, very important. So maybe hallucinated test cases. So make a check, make an audit log, so you kind of know if it is hallucinating for a particular case, and then build on your context prompt. Then try to bring a practical balance with all these things. I would like to emphasize again on shadow AI and compliance, because shadow AI, if you know or not, it's already probably there in your organization. So again, don't treat it as a malicious intent from your team members. It's just that people are trying to do their jobs faster. We are moving really at a pace where it is hard to catch up. The releases are much faster. So people are just using the tools that are available. Some companies kind of impose, but with startups, it's very hard to kind of impose those checks. So if they're using shadow AI, what your path should be is sit down with your team, make it easy for them. So if you have a legitimate path, then people will come and give ideas, and then you can build a prompt library, or like talk to your CISO, your information security officer, or whoever is taking care of security in your organization, and say, hey, we would like to have a lightweight intake process for these AI tools for QA. Bring in that practical balance. Last but not least, compliance. Let's not wait for it to be a phase 2 problem. Let's not say, hey, we will ship this and we'll figure out when it breaks. Your hot fixes are not going to bring the trust back. So it's very important that if you're using synthetic data, if you're in any of these, don't use any unvetted AI tools. Make sure your QA team is compliant with your organization goals. So this is the final slide. So just to sum it up, maybe take it as a 3-month goal. First, start off with the audit. Go and check what AI tools you're using. Mark them as sanction tools. Maybe your organization is allowing, and some are using without out of the sanction list. So make a list of those sanction and shadow tools. Identify those 3 top coverage gaps by failure pattern. What are those? And then you can work towards it in the next weeks, where you could implement your gate models, where you're saying, hey, we will use only this tool for test case generation. You have to be using a certain tool like a particular IDE Copilot or whatever your organization is using, and use only supported models that show up in the list, where your organization is providing you with the tokens. Only use those LLM models for your automation, test automation or scripting. And then build your prompt library. I think this is a great way to start for your test case design. You don't need to purchase any commercial tools. You could do it within your systems, where you have your prompt library, you build on the context, you give them the use cases, and it starts generating things for you. Governance, again, please tag those artifacts, your reviewer. It's very, very important. You have a QA reviewer, and then you should have protection of the PI information. And then you can scale from there. After your first 2 months, you can start extending into your hallucination audits, your trust scores. You can start using Fairlearn or SHAP models and kind of expand that to present your AI QA as a big initiative to your compliance lead or your CISO in your organization. So let's say, in lean teams, in this day and age, we got to move fast, but we cannot break trust. Our goal is not a perfect AI. Our goal is accountable AI. Thank you for your time today, and I'm open to taking questions.
Yeah, Usha, thank you so much for this insights. Was very interesting for me too. I was listening backstage here, and yes, we have some questions there too. The first one is, what can AI, from your point of view, never replace in testing? Which role should be always in human hands?
Yeah, I think, like I said, I've been in this industry. When I started, automation was something on the rise. And people said, oh, functional testers, manual testers are going to be out of job. Yes, it did change the balancing, where manual testing has kind of become less significant. I would say lesser in terms of resource count. But what is not going to change? It's going to change our perspective of QA from a tester to a reviewer or a strategist point of view. So no more you would be called a QA tester or an automation tester or an automation developer. You would start taking on the role of a QA strategist or a test strategist. We are actually using AI, but it's not going to replace, because it has hallucinations, it has all these other issues, it has a long way. So we will always be the gates, the quality check gates, not just a quality check gate for your product or application in your organization, but a gate or a quality check gate to all the AI tools that you're using. So there's no bypassing. I've used it. Our team has used it. It'll generate, but when it scales, I'm not a big fan of record replay sort of tools back in the day, nor with the AI agents that are coming up too fast, because human intervention is needed there. So we ought to be the strategist role. So just change the perspective, the big picture view, into becoming a QA strategist.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. The next question. Can AI intimate that the training data is not enough and they're covering all ethnicity or demographics?
Yeah, so it can sort of kind of do the checks of your training data, the depth and the breadth of your training data. But the problem is when I did my research on a certain healthcare products, where I was doing, it's a publicly available data set for UHG. Optum had a case where they had a big bias leak. If you look up after the session, just type UHG Optum history. So you will see that their training data actually had a lot of bias against a certain ethnicity and certain demographics. That led to saying that if somebody from a different ethnicity, like an African American people went, they said, oh, you don't need hospitalization because your risk score is much lower. Because their data is not equal. They did the same thing with, I think it was probably for a certain disease check, a risk predictor for men and women for pneumonia. And what happened was there's a case study out there where they did the risk check where larger amount of data set for men was in the system and much smaller subset of data for women. So your model assumes that women are at a lesser risk. So this is where very important that it'll, it can build the training data, but this is very important where we learn and run the bias and fairness checks. Absolutely use the open source tools, run the check. You will be surprised in how much gaps you can find in your test data.
Yeah, thank you. So we have the next one. There are a lot of questions today. What is shadow AI?
Yeah, interesting. So a lot of us are already experiencing this in our team, but we don't know the term. So you have a team, let's say you have a 10-member QA team or even 5-member QA team, and you do not have an approved list in your organization, one case where AI is not yet approved because you're in a regulated industry, people are using that to ask certain questions. Maybe they're using GPT on their phone or on their browser, using Claude to ask, how do I build this? I have to build this strategy. I have to do this presentation, right, for my team. But I'm inputting some company information, my product information. So this is basically not a malicious use or bad intent usage of AI tools from your team, but it is usage of AI tools from your team that they're using from the unapproved list. So you basically do not have this vetted, it's an unvetted AI list. So that is shadow AI. People are using, maybe writing code. For example, back in the day, when you're stuck with the code program or a function, you would know exactly what function to ask. You would go look up in Google and look at those forums where you discuss with fellow developers. Now you go ask GPT or you ask Claude. This is shadow AI, right? You're not supposed to go and put in code because it contains part of your product information, proprietary information. So it could be a leak of PII. So that is shadow AI, very dangerous, very subtle, very hard to encounter. So when you ask your team, they would say, they just want to make it fast, right? People have to deliver things fast. So trying to move fast, trying to keep up with what is going on in today's market, today's faster sprints, people are just using. So that is shadow AI. So Yogesh, you must go back, check with your team. Don't intimidate them, but just ask them what tools they're using. I can pretty much bet that you would at least have one or two shadow AI going on in your team.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. I think we have another question. How can AI and Gen AI help with exploratory testing?
Great question. So with exploratory testing, so I found some tools. I personally haven't tried them, but when I was kind of researching for AI tools, we found some exploratory testing tools that will kind of go in and kind of build your cases and come back with a certain results. But also, if you're using, let's say, we use a tool called Juni, which is part of JetBrains, and we also use Claude Code for automation. So you can always ask an AI assistant within JetBrains. There's an AI assistant. You can ask, if I'm writing a test script for an API, I would say, hey, I covered this. What else do you think I should cover? Then it kind of give you some edge cases or cases that it's not documented. So I'm trying to go beyond what is in there. But definitely there are tools. I can't recollect. I think there's one Bagasura, something starts with Bug, which is an exploratory testing tool that's out in the market, but it's commercial.
Okay, great. And I think we have one last question here. Is there a scenario where you would deliberately choose to slow down and not use AI in the QA process? If so, what would it look like?
So let's say you're doing a big release. You have heavy customer data, production data. Never use AI tools there. Never, ever use AI tools in production data. You would think this is common sense. It's simple, but there is pressure on QA teams across the globe where you have to deliver fast. The teams are shrinking. So I recently had a client, they're launching, they said 4 weeks. I said 12 weeks. They said 4 weeks. You got to do what you got to do because there's a deadline. They want to go out. There's funding. There is users ready, whatever, the business impact. So what do you do at that time? So there is production data. So absolutely no touching production data or any personally, PII data, personal information of the clients. Where you could actually slow down is those situations where you are in regulated environment, where you really deliberately have to slow down and say, yeah, we can't test all of these. So only these features will be tested. You kind of do your old QA school, old school QA. What did we do before AI, right? Use our mind and say, hey, I'm going to use my brain and say, I cannot deliver these 10 features. Out of this, what is the most important one for you to go out when you launch the product where your investors are going to fund your company? Tell me those and we will test those. So that is where we need to kind of, slow down and do the things.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Usha, for these insights and also for answering all these questions. If you guys have another question, just get in contact with Usha, and actually she will be happy to answer that too. Please don't forget to vote for best speaker and best presentation. If you like the speech, you can use this QR code here. And enjoy the rest of the conference. And Usha, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you everyone for listening in. Please reach out if you have any further questions you just want to discuss, share ideas. I would be happy to. Thank you, Richie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Meet ISTQB Prep. Designed for future ISTQB certified testers, ISTQB Prep gives you everything you need to prepare effectively, from realistic exam simulations to AI-driven insights. Practice like it's the real exam. Get timed ISTQB-aligned tests featuring official sample questions so you know exactly what to expect. No more second guessing. Receive instant feedback with clear explanations, helping you understand why an answer is right or wrong. Stay on track with detailed performance analytics. Pinpoint your strengths, identify areas to improve, and watch your confidence grow. Get access today through GASQ or ISQI, whether as a standalone prep tool or bundled with your ISTQB exam. Study smarter, boost your confidence, pass your exam. Start preparing with ISTQB Prep today.